Good morning, Uday and Bhargav. Today is Wednesday, November 15th, and here's the heads up brief for today. Today's production to our clients consisted of a total of 63 issues. In East Asia Pacific, we covered 30 issues. In South Asia, 20 issues, and 13 issues in the EMEA region. I will be briefing you on the major issues of today's production.
Hey, Bassel, thank you. Let's discuss the major issues, please.
In East Asia Pacific, I'll be covering the top two of the 30 issues. In Myanmar, anti-military operations by various ethnic armed organizations and resistance groups have intensified in Rakhine, Chin, and Kaya states over the past few days. The Brotherhood Alliance, comprising the Arakan Army, the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, and the Tang National Liberation Army's Operation 1027 in Shan State, has initiated these operations. With the military losing control of its bases and security outposts at a rapid rate, the status quo is expected to change in parts of the country, particularly in the border areas. The rapid loss of territory also signifies the low morale within Myanmar's forces, which have been stretched out. We covered this as the major development in Southeast Asia today.
Thanks, Bassel. Yeah, these are developments that could very well change the tide of the stalemate that has gone on in the conflict in Myanmar over the last 2 years. The military is being stretched out on all fronts, and it really remains to see whether they can hold on to control, because the resistance forces are now also going towards more urban areas which have been under control of the military. So this is quite a turn of events in the last few weeks. We have to closely monitor this to make sure the team's on it. Thanks.
Sure, Day. In Indonesia, labor unions have announced nationwide walkouts between November 30th and December 13th. At least 5 million workers from the Confederation of Indonesian Trade Unions and the All Indonesia United Workers Confederation are expected to participate in the strike. The strike action is due to dissatisfaction with the 2024 minimum wage formula.
So this issue will become bigger in the next few weeks, as the minimum wage issue comes at the end of every year, and normally unions demand double-digit percentage increases in the wages. But the government has, in the last few years, only increased wages by a couple percent. So there will be more protests over this. Make sure the team's monitoring it, and we send out advisories on some of the larger demonstrations. Thanks.
Sure, very well noted. In South Asia, I'll be covering the top issue of the 20 issues. In Bangladesh, ready-made garment workers staged demonstrations and obstructed roads in sections 13 and 14 of Mirpur, Dhaka yesterday. The protest by the workers was to demand higher wages. Protesters also blocked roads in Manipur and kept nearly 100 factories closed. The Bangladesh Knitwear Manufacturers and Exporters Association advised members to halt new recruitments. We covered this as the major development in South Asia today.
All right, thank you.
In EMEA, I'll be covering the top 3 of the 13 issues. In Italy, 2 major trade unions, the General Confederation of Labor and the Labor Union, called for a nationwide strike on November 17th. The strike will feature in multiple sectors, particularly in the public transportation sector. The duration of the strike will range from 8 to 24 hours. Transport Minister Matteo Salvini said he was ready to impose limits on the length of the strike. He criticized the unions for holding the country hostage. So the latest call for the strike comes as the government in Rome and trade unions trade barbs over the 2024 state budget. Unions have criticized the budget, claiming it fails to address the country's main challenges, especially healthcare and education. We conveyed this to our clients via an advisory message today.
Yes, so it is important to monitor some of these movements, especially by the trade unions. We need to also consider that the government in power in Italy is a conservative government, and they are likely to be a little harder on their purses, holding on to their purses, basically, in terms of these critical areas such as the education and whatnot. So let's monitor the situation on the ground and the trade union movements across Europe. They have been quite belligerent in the last year or two.
Sure, Bhargav, that's very well noted. In Ukraine, Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba has confirmed the delay in supplies of ammunition from the EU to Ukraine. This comes after German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said the EU's plan to deliver 1 million artillery shells to Ukraine by March 2024 could fail. The potential delay in these ammunition supplies from the EU to Ukraine indicates the supply chain bottlenecks the EU defense industry is facing, along with its shift of focus from Ukraine to Israel due to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We conveyed this to our clients via an advisory message today as well.
Yes, so this basically highlights how there was no forethought or lack of forethought among the European countries when they were pushing Ukraine into a forced war with Russia, and the lack of forethought in repeated strategic moves to ignore certain critical agreements such as the Minsk agreement. So it doesn't really come as a surprise that the industries are under pressure. So if they're not planned out or an end game to such a prolonged, protracted conflict, such bottlenecks were quite natural. Let's monitor the situation in Eastern Europe, especially the economic indicators as well as the supply chain issues within Europe in supplying war efforts in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thanks, Bhargav. In concerning the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, around 11,400 Palestinians and 1,200 Israelis have died. Approximately 27,000 Palestinians and 3,500 Israelis have been injured. The IDF raided Gaza's biggest hospital, Al-Shifa Hospital, earlier today. Gunshots and explosions were reported inside the hospital. Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, yesterday said Palestinians in Gaza would be better off leaving for other countries. The conflict is likely to further escalate as calls for a ceasefire are being ignored by the Israeli government. We conveyed this to our clients via an advisory message today as well.
Yes, so the Western countries are not doing enough to put pressure on Israel to ensure there's accountability on their front as well. Now, there's no question about condoning or guarding Hamas against any kind of criticism, but at the same time, accountability for the actions is paramount, especially when there are civilians who are being targeted directly or indirectly. So let's monitor the situation and see if they are further in their operations in Gaza, and if the new fronts to the conflict will open up to the north as Hezbollah plans more operations as well. So nothing further from my end apart from this. Thank you.
Thanks, Bhargav and Uday. That's all for today.